Ja. Voor degenen die een zitplaats willen is het handig.
Ja, ik zat al te kijken inderdaad. Ja.
Ja. Ja, maar we hebben nog stoelen voor.
Maar we moeten nog steeds wel, wij zijn degene die het programma eerst in te stoppen. We snappen nog steeds de lijn niet voorbij. Mijn werkbedrijf dat is iets wat continu moet blijven leren. Dus in de avond traint hij het en dan de volgende dag is het weer een versie.
Ja, exact.
Zoals we in de naam
Work? Yeah, great.
is een van de universiteiten die heel veel over websites.
Maar du kannst nicht essen. Nein, doch eher. Wollen anfangen. Ist gut.
Dat soort chip is dat is niet helemaal mijn maar het is wel mooi dat het gezicht hier echt voorop fijne controls hier.
you have friends who should watch this, send them to the live stream so you can share it.
Okay, now you can hear me and the live stream can hear me. Welcome everybody. We are very happy that you came with so many. And of course we are also happy to welcome our guests, Ibby and Arif. Thank you for coming. Welcome everybody. Yes, okay. I will be your host of tonight. I'm Kim. I'm in the Nature 2.0 team. First of all, I actually want to know where I have to stand so that I don't have this sound. Who is for the first time on a meetup of Nature 2.0? Wow. All fans of SingularityNet, I suppose? Cool. Okay, nice. And I want to ask you a favor. We also have a live stream for all the people who are not able to be here. So say hi to the people on the live stream. Just wave and make noise. Yeah, great. And they also feel that they are welcome. I don't like the sounds that I have, but...
Kan het zijn dat mijn mic open staat? Dat ik ook geschoten ben? Ja, maar
okay, I just continue. This is the program of tonight. So we're going to start with JP. There's JP. He is the track leader of Nature 2.0. And he is going to start with a crazy story. Okay, I just continue. This is the program of... And now I hear myself. That's nice. I'll just check if I'm doing okay. But JP is going to tell you a crazy story. And I want to warn you, if you get confused during his story, then please wait, because afterwards he's going to explain a little bit more about Nature 2.0, and then you maybe understand that crazy story as well. So I think we are now going to start, and I give JP the floor.
Okay, thank you. And the picture. Yeah. And not stand in front of the beamer. It's always a good idea. Okay. What I'm going to share with you is what is this Nature 2.0, because most of you know SingularityNet, but there is a hackathon where Nature 2.0 and SingularityNet are going to co-create together. So what is Nature 2.0? Nature 2.0 is a crazy story. Is asking crazy questions like, can we build an ecosystem that is so cheap that no company can compete? Well, a self-driving car doesn't need humans to operate it. And it are the humans who have an urge for money. Not the machine, not the AIs. They are things. They have no urge for money. So what happens to our ecosystems if we take the humans out? Then you have a car that would drive from A to B, pay for the energy, pay for the car wash, pay for the mechanics, and you could pay it to ride from A to B. The incredible thing which happens then is that you get a solution that is 5 times cheaper than what you pay today. So you're immediately at the level that no company can compete. Because you redefined the structure. Who's going to invest in it then is a normal question. Well, I like this kind of cheap transportation. Do you? Because then we can kickstart such a solution. And let's say we do it in our hometown, 50,000 people. And we do this Kickstarter and we have a number of cars, but not enough. So in the beginning, the cars would ask a bit more money to grow their numbers. So they start driving, you are paying them, and with additional money they buy cars. And then there is this funny moment that the AI signals, okay, there is now enough money, we stop buying cars. And the machines are driving, it's okay, but there is money coming in. And nobody cares. So the money is piling up, and nobody cares because we have built an ecosystem of autonomous machines. So what we can do then is turn this thing around and give the excess money to all the people of the Netherlands as basic income. It is an incredible low amount of basic income, but it is basic income. And if we start a system like this, then we can really turn up the crazy. We can exchange all the services also by autonomous machines, making the level of cost within the system lower and lower and lower, all the excess money benefiting the people as basic income. And as soon we have such an ecosystem, the cars that stand still at night and already got the energy, we can use them to drive energy around and not disrupt one ecosystem, but two. Do you think this is nuts? Do you think this is crazy? Imagine a guy from 1995 who we are telling about this new technology called the internet. And this guy has a CD store. And we're going to tell him, well, this new technology called the internet, what we're going to do is we're going to build stores on that funny place, and then we'll have 1,000 times the stock that you have, 1,000 times. Then we start downloading it for a fraction of the cost, after which we introduce streaming services, which give you access to all the music of the world for the price of a quarter CD per month. At this moment, this guy goes berserk. He said, this is crazy, this is ridiculous, this will never happen. The industry won't allow it. It's absolutely impossible. And in the world of today, we know it is normal. So what we want to do within Nature 2.0 is explore the questions we forget to ask, to look for the unimaginable, and then with new technology try to build it. Because it could well be that the barrier is not in the technology, it is in our frozen mindset. So how do we get access to unimaginable ideas? And why are we called Nature 2.0? Well, the nice thing is, we share this planet with 8.7 million animal species, who all have working ecosystems for their housing, for their food, for their energy, for their transportation. And none of those ecosystems are based on money, identity like we use it, or ownership. And still they function. They function because in nature, valuable is what is freely accessible and abundantly there, not the thing I can take away from you. And in evolution, they use those things that are freely accessible to co-create, to cooperate and create ecosystems towards abundance. That is crazy for one species, us, but all the others are already doing it. So what is the challenge for us? Because if you take an engineer, a programmer, and a designer, and you put them in a room and you say, okay, build something unimaginable that will last for 1,000 years. They will get that glow in their eyes and start building. But then the business guy comes in and starts asking these questions. What is the business model? Why will people pay today? And how can we keep them on paying? This mindset changes the way we look at engineering solutions. From a money perspective, it makes sense, but it leads to really, really crappy engineering. So if you want to build a mobility service for the world, you start with cars, but if you look at the amount of cars, there are now 6% driving and 94% standing still at peak. For this mobility service, you would use the 6%. All those cars have spare parts that predominantly do not fit in other cars. But if you build this mobility service, of course it would. Everybody who has played with Lego knows that with a different set of blocks you can build all the cars of the world, and maybe even a plane. But all the cars we sell today are for one purpose only. So challenging the engineering, challenging all the lock-ins we create to make money, changes system. And if we cooperate together in this way, something very funny would happen. It would become radical cheaper. Because we don't need all those lock-ins to operate. What you build, if you look at solutions like this, that is clear. You are not building a business. But you're building a commons, something that is owned by nobody or everybody. That can be used by everybody. And we already know those examples. Like the voluntary fire brigade, because we think it's a good idea if houses don't burn down. Like the community gardens. Like the blood banks. Like the WhatsApp neighborhood group for your safety. We know these examples, but normally we focus on businesses. Because this ownerless thing does something in our head. Do you know what also has no owners? The big problems of the world. But they already have communities who are working on them, people who are volunteering, to start building these solutions. What we want to explore, if we take cutting edge technology and we put those crazy narratives against them, like the internet, are we going to discover that we can build radical different solutions? What we are going to ask you is to build an ownerless ecosystem, or a commons, or even an ecosystem towards abundance. But how can that be an ecosystem towards abundance? Well, I work in the energy industry, but I really like forests. Because underneath the forest, there's a mycelium network where all the trees are connected, and the big trees help the smaller trees to get water, to get food. So that there is no need for the small tree to become a competitor of the big tree. In our world and in nature, the only change we can make, the only evolution we can make, is if we use energy. So let's take this starting point and take the question of energy to discover how to make abundant solutions. Well, this morning as you woke up, the sun was shining, delivering 1,500 times the amount of energy you need on your roof. And you need it 1 meter below in the power socket. That's the engineering challenge. But we have created an ecosystem where we transport energy nationally and internationally. If you look for electricity, we have created, we have solved the problem how we can balance energy everywhere using a number of energy players who are predominantly in there for the money, competing with each other on the lowest price. And we make this fight possible because we pay for units of energy. What would happen if we challenge this thought of competition? Because competition is a form of symbiosis where all parties lose. Then it's changing a complex system. And a complex system you can change by changing the rules. So what if we make a system where you no longer pay for units of energy, but you pay only if you disrupt the system beyond a certain threshold. So if you operate your house out of this 1,500 times abundance of energy, of course it's free. But as soon as you force the system to transport energy, to convert energy, to store energy, or to produce energy, then you have to pay. The big difference with this system is that you share this problem with your neighbors, with the people around you. And it becomes interesting to co-create on solutions that make the system more resilient. So that the threshold at which you have to pay goes up. You can crowdsource this solution because every step you take makes the ecosystem more resilient. It's more solutions for your energy problem that are readily available. So by taking out this thought, this need, this urge for competition, changing this rule, you create an ecosystem towards abundance. And this kind of thinking is what we want to do with you. This kind of new narratives, this kind of, okay, if you have this crazy new narrative, how can we build it? This is what we like to do with you. We'll do that, for example, at the biggest blockchain and AI hackathon of the world, odyssey.org, where we say, build a commons, build an ecosystem towards abundance, or build an ownerless system if you want to compete in the Nature 2.0 track. We know we are the toughest track, so we offer a lot of help in the preparation, during the hackathon, and afterwards. And that's where I want to share the last minutes about of you, because to get a clear picture where you should now be at, I called it the Nature 2.0 Heartbeat. Tonight would be a great evening to get curious. And then on February 5th, there is the official deep dive of all the tracks, so also of our track, where we're going to work with a room full of people on how these narratives can be built. You don't have to go away there with answers, but only with the feeling, okay, this is possible. So that you can register before February 23rd, and then the best 10 teams will be able to compete in the Nature 2.0 hackathon. Then on March 13th, there is this big Getting Ready conference, where already our whole team will be there to look at what you have been thinking and check if you're ready or not. If you need some help with technology, if you need some help getting partners, if you need some help with your storytelling, if you have some technical questions. On March 21st, this is you're all going to like, we're going to do a technical deep dive, especially on SingularityNet. So for all the work you want to do in AI, they will bring some technical guys over. And we have a session to work on that, so that if the as soon as the hackathon starts, you are ready. If you want to find resources, then we have this website called Nature 2.0. Nature 2.0 actually. So you find there all the events. And you see, hello? So that you, okay. You see, it's all about technology.
All about energy.
All about energy, yeah. Okay, yes. And now they're functioning both. This will be really challenging. You see all the events there, and if you're joining us via live stream today, all the Nature 2.0 live events will be live streamed, and all the elements will be recorded so they can be looked after at YouTube. We have been doing a lot of events already on the Nature 2.0 to prepare a group of people for this. You can find the information on that on Nature 2.0. And the crazy narrative we're also been exploring, you can find that as a TEDx talk. To give you an idea of what we have been doing, we have been working with developers of different companies to share their take on Nature 2.0. And they share their stories, their GitHubs, their testnets for you to prepare and already start exploring ideas. Because what we want to do is create a community where we can explore these crazy narratives and connect to, for example, the Dutch governments, to parties of the critical infrastructures of the Netherlands, of other countries, so that jointly we can create a community. Because this kind of change you cannot do alone. You have to have a lot of friends to build it. If you want to become a millionaire, being alone is fine. If you want to change the world, you will discover that you have a lot of friends. So I hope for a very interesting evening together. So let's get crazy. Thank you.
Before we do the switch, maybe maybe we can have some. Are there some burning questions that we can do now before we go to the next speaker? Is anyone brave enough? Yeah. Yes. And now we have because you're my. Yes, you can speak in if you really speak in the catch box.
So I was wondering if you could expand a bit on this narrative of progress without competition, because what we've been told is, so progress comes from this, let's say, primal state of being that is facilitated through competition, that is facilitated to competition of resources such as money. What would you have to say to that critic of that is what drives progress and not this utopian?
It's a good point. So it's reframing what's happening. So if you look, for example, at SingularityNet or at people like Ocean Protocol, the first ones are building a distributed marketplace for data, and the other builds a distributed marketplace for algorithms. Together, they form a kind of Google. So there is this competition, and the question to the community is, okay, if you build a solution on one place on the earth in this digital age, it's automatically everywhere. So do you want to become a community that creates open source solutions building on each other, or do you want to stay within the definite walls of Google? Because there's then, of course, a form of competition as well. It's the message that I want to share is that as soon as we unite the people and not build to get rich, but to be part of the coolest project of the world, to create solutions that are really valuable for all, then that there is this sense of purpose that unites us. And this is what gives us energy. And that means we have to solve less engineering problems than the people who want to do it for the money. And you can connect, like what's in SingularityNet happening, the AI researchers in Africa with the AI researchers in Asia, with the AI researchers in America, because we see those possibilities for the future, and we can, I just won the lottery, I think. And we can start building those things. And that is by looking differently, we it's not even I, it's okay. It is asking questions nobody has asked before. Because if you ask questions nobody has asked before or we forgot about already, then you're looking at places of the world where nobody's looking. And that is unimaginable for some people, but can also be the start of disruption.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah?
Anybody?
Last question before we go to the next speaker?
Are you ready?
Yeah?
Okay.
No, it was all clear. Well, I think most people need some time to digest this crazy story, so that's okay. We have all evening. Then we go to the next speaker. That's Arif from, he's the marketing vice president of SingularityNet. And the story goes about what do we do with our data when it's about social contracts. Cool. And yeah, we can go. So I give you the stage and.
Yeah. Thank you. Let me just make sure that this is working. Maybe I use your mic.
Great, okay. Oh, perfect, okay. Everything's working now. Okay. So, I'm Arif. Really a pleasure to be here in Holland. Thank you to the organizers for having us over. I wanted to start with this image because I learned about it almost a decade ago. This is Thomas Hobbes' Leviathan. The Leviathan is actually a king who represents the will of its subjects. If you actually zoom in on the Leviathan, you'll find that the Leviathan's body and the body armor is actually made up of individual people. And the reason why that is the case is because what Hobbes and some of the Enlightenment philosophers were trying to do was, how do you take an individual identity and put it within a group identity? What is that bridging mechanism? I want to make a case today that the Leviathans of today are not necessarily political states. They are the large data Leviathans, the people who have taken over a large chunk of your data, may not necessarily have given you equal rights. So I want all of us today to try and understand, if that's something you can take away from my talk, it's to understand the power dynamics of how they've acquired this amount of data, but how they've also positioned the data correctly, sometimes in your benefit, sometimes against it. And the reason why I want to underpin this presentation on Western Enlightenment philosophers is because this took a long time for them to understand. And a lot of their theories now, unfortunately, the primary one that I want to focus on is social contract theory. A lot of that, unfortunately, has been relegated to the dustbin of history. And we really need to bring it back, because without social contract theory, the individual, which is at the center of any ecosystem, will be designed out, will be taken out. And that's actually what we've seen today so far. So it starts with this, right? How many of you actually read and analyze and appreciate all of the terms of service that you sign up for any technology platform? Anybody brave enough? Okay, one lawyer. One lawyer's there. Okay. So this is by the way very difficult. It's designed that way because of certain benefits that come out, that accrue for the platforms. And your data, or all of these social contracts, are designed to capture a large part of your data. Some of the largest companies in the history of man, they were 9 times less productive than the large tech companies today, because the amount of leverage, that asymmetrical impact and power, is fundamentally coming in from your data. That's the primary reason why they are so much more productive. So if you go back down to the individual level, which is you as a person, you are a data battery, right? You are a data factory. You're generating data, going into all of these platforms ubiquitously every single day. And the data Leviathan is somebody who has integrated all of these solutions as part of their basic form. So the technology Leviathans today have done that. And it's easy to think that, okay, this happened because of the internet explosion. Everybody got data, and it was a data rush, just like, in the 1900s, there was the oil rush when oil barons went out and found oil without much regulation. But it's actually more insidious. So this is a feature called infinite scroll, okay? Infinite scroll is, if you really think about it, it's so simple. It's just you and your phone and one thumb. And if you just stay on infinite scroll, you can spend hours being stuck in the news feed, hours. But it's designed so simply, especially when you compare and contrast it to, let's say, a newspaper. Because a newspaper actually has an ending, right? But infinite scroll doesn't. And if you look at those red buttons there, the superscripts, what you'll also realize across all large technology platforms, there's sort of a visual language that's cohesive, because it already is designed to trigger your dopamine system. So my request is, if you just look at it for 5 minutes, you can start getting triggered. You'll start getting anxious just by looking at your news feed and some of these messages and notifications.
Sorry to interrupt you. Can you please put your mic a little bit further?
A bit
away from
further?
the mic? Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm very passionate, so they can go. So but the question is, the thing about the individual here is, because the system that they've designed here is designed to take as much data from you. So the feed that you think you're reading is actually reading you, right? The problem here is, actually they could design an alternative. They could design a system that starts with, hey, XYZ person, how much time would you like to spend in your newsfeed today? right? It's a very simple design trick. It's not very difficult to do. But it goes fundamentally against what Jan-Peter was talking about, the business model. And it goes against it because the more time you spend on feed, the more clicks, the more ads that they can serve, the more revenues. So technically, while this seems like such a simple design system, have a look around you. Right? Whether you're with your loved ones, whether you're with your friends, how many of us, our attention is monopolized by this single feature that is cutting across all of society, right? And it's probably some designer in a room somewhere that said, how can I optimize maximum for shareholder value? How can I maximize attention span? So the problem is not so much that you could, okay, now I can see myself. The problem isn't so much that, can you try and get the slides? The problem isn't so much that these systems are there. The problem is that there is a big impact if we're talking about us, we're relatively educated. But when you have ubiquitous systems like that, and you are dealing with mass number of people, and you have to deal with the lowest common denominator of society. Now this is a photo that I was on the same street that day when it happened. A lot of people know about Cambridge Analytica and the scandals, but very few people know about Comet Pizza. Comet Pizza, because I live in Washington, DC, Comet Pizza is on this street called Van Ness Avenue. And Van Ness Avenue is where I was just walking this one fine day when I heard a gunshot. And you know, I grew up in Singapore, so we don't have guns on the street, unlike America, which is quite a unique adjustment for me. But this man, based on his newsfeed activity, based on the way that he was hooked in, decided to believe that Comet Pizza was running a pedophile ring run by Hillary Clinton supporters. So he went in, he decided to go in as the sole sort of individual, and he started shooting, right? He was then later caught, and then subsequently now I think his sentence has just been passed. But the challenge here is that the addictive behavior of that feed, keeping him inside, this photograph, this moment in political history was when we had to start confronting fake news. Before that, there was a lot of fake news, trust me. But it was here when they looked at it and realized actually some of the systems that have been designed to keep your attention and then give you fake news, that's going to cause harm to society. And it all starts again with the business model, right? We just optimize for that business model, maximum shareholder value. The outcome is something like this. So I want to just give all of you a framework today. Any technology platform that you look at, try and look at it from 3 layers. First, the data capture layer, right? The data capture layer is always going to be there, but it's going to be powered by the design. How beautiful, elegant, and deceptive is that design? Is it so intuitive that you're going to give up your data as easily as possible? Think about the cigarette, right? I don't want to talk bad about any smokers, but I used to be a smoker myself. So think about the cigarette, how easy and organic it is for you to inhale nicotine and then suffer the consequences. So you're going to look at design that is going to capture your attention, make it as effortless as possible, and then it's going to capture as much data from you, removing a lot of your agency. The second layer is where I think it gets a bit more complicated, and this is where SingularityNet is focused on. It's the algorithms. Because the algorithms that were designed by, many of the social networks were designed to create as much likes and clicks as possible. It's the algorithms that sit on top of the data that create the most sensitive layer of all, which is the layer of meaning. And meaning is the layer of meaning around society. What are the stories we tell? What do we talk about? What do we believe in? Meaning is basically monopolized today by the people who control this stack. So any platform, any large platform that can capture data at scale, that has algorithms purely designed for maximum commercial value, is going to destructively affect the layer of meaning. Make sense so far? Okay? So this is the framework that you want to look at when you think about the cycle. And just to summarize, it starts with any design that is going to be triggering your dopamine cycle. You get your data capture, you get the algorithms, and this goes on and on and on endlessly until something negative happens. Now, is there sort of an alternative? And about a year ago, I had the chance to meet with the founding team at SingularityNet, a bunch of, radicals, free thinkers, people who wanted to think about the revolution that was happening in the blockchain space and see if it would be possible to try and attack this structure, right? This was the moment of our token sale. I take the slide, it's publicly available. When we launched our project, we shared our message and vision very loudly and clearly with a lot of people. And this was the moment all of the people who believed in our vision and mission, they said we want to be part of a new future. So blockchain technology allowed us to create our cryptocurrency, which then allows people to access and purchase algorithms on our platform. And all open source, like Jan-Peter said, all publicly available so that you can have an understanding of what you're doing. So one thing that surprised me, and because I'm in marketing and also on the business side of things, and have been a part of several different communities and large companies, because blockchain technology is there and it's allowed us to create an incentive mechanism, what we've found is a lot more people have heard about us. And a lot more people have heard about us because we've incentivized them with the right behavior. So whenever we see something fantastic happening in the community, we use some of our tokens, we share the message with people, incentivize the right behaviors. So that creates sort of a viral loop that allows people to then discover this exact same message that I'm telling you about. Very, very different, because this is a sort of at the leading edge and intersection of how to build communities at scale when you understand blockchain technology. We have, of course, a famous example of Sophia. She is a humanoid robot. She's developed in close partnership with Hanson Robotics, and some of our engineers work on her algorithms as well. So we have that expertise and experience. So some of these interesting applications will also be shared with the community in the App Store. So you can have a look at the beta that is going to go live at the end of February, I believe. And you can have an understanding of how we're going to actually build and build it out to the mass market. So this is an example I want to talk about, and this is at the data layer. So there is a startup in Indonesia called Hara, and what Hara is doing is it's trying to bring back, or trying to allow farmers, which means at the base of the pyramid, the very, very base of the pyramid in Indonesia, to participate in the data economy. It's a bit radical because, and this is why they're doing it as well, because it's a leapfrog technology. If they can get farmers to understand how their data is going to be used, actually, and it's not that difficult a challenge if you think about how microfinance sort of entered that industry as well. But if they can get farmers to understand their data, then we at SingularityNet can leverage that data and give them insights around their crops. But every time their data is moved or transacted with, they get compensated because it's part of their individual identity, their ownership. So it's a very radical approach. It's a pilot that we're doing, and I think there's some really exciting developments that could actually reshape the way we think about the base of the pyramid. So just summarizing again, data algorithms meaning, this is how we would want to aim, hopefully, for net positive on society, because that's the meaning we're going for. Otherwise, the alternatives that we're left with are going to be extremely difficult. So I think I wanted to end off on this image. The Leviathan is not something that you should be actually scared of, as long as individuals amongst us have agency. My belief, my hypothesis, although this still needs to be proven at a scalable level because blockchain has a lot of promise and potential, blockchain can allow us to create social contracts that are programmable. And that sort of agency, if we restore it back to the individual, you might just rebalance society in a way that might push it in a direction where not all the agency is captured by large tech companies. So you don't necessarily have to fear this image. You can actually be part of it and create a benevolent structure or platform that allows people to express themselves creatively. Okay? Thank you very much for listening. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, some questions. Come on, guys.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks for the talk, by the way. Very good. So how can you shift people's minds from services that are free, like Facebook and Android, stuff like that, to services where they necessarily have to pay?
Yeah.
Right. How do you do that shift?
Yeah, that's a very difficult question because you're talking about muscle memory at mass scale, right? People's muscle memory has been conditioned to use their thumb and read the feed and connect with friends. So if you want to disrupt that, you can look at examples in society when they've tried to disrupt it. You know, I had the chance to speak with the founder of Joule, JUUL, which is a tobacco sort of a different company that's trying to do tobacco well and trying to remove nicotine addiction. It's a step-by-step process. They're using design thinking and design mechanics. I don't necessarily know whether it's the best example because it's still a type of nicotine that they're selling, but they're moving people away from cancer, like a lot of tar-causing substances, to something a bit slightly better. But the ideal state you want to get them to is actually no nicotine, right? So is there a way to bridge that? I think sometimes you need that bridge. Oftentimes that bridge has been the private sector. So if you look at society today, we've tried to design systems that have empowered, it always starts off with a good thing, right? Like freelance labor, freelance economies, participate in the gig economy, become your own boss. That's always the message. But sooner or later, the moment you take the individual out and you try and create algorithms that can plan and move and all of this, suddenly you remove that individual from that system. So you want to design systems that educate people about their individual rights, but unfortunately most people don't understand that they actually have individual rights whenever they participate in an ecosystem like this. They should not be giving up their data that easily. They should be asking the right questions. It's easy for us to maybe think about these things, but when I spoke to partners of ours who are working with farmers, like that's even a bigger challenge, right? So my basic thinking is that you must understand the sacredness of the individual, because in Western Enlightenment thinking, the individual is the source of enlightenment. You have to confront yourself to get ideas about how to participate in society, right? And a lot of responsibilities on you. So I think it starts with education, but sometimes using, like we do interesting quizzes and content creation where we talk to people and we help them understand what your data rights are, how they've been taken away, what was a magic trick that they pulled on you, and then now you understand, see, this is your data, this is how much you're actually worth. The reason why you're worth that much was because if you look at the Wall Street profits that these companies are posting, that's how much is being taken away from you. So, and this is important because the moment you start understanding data not just as capital, right? So data as capital is good because it means you need to be compensated. But if you take it further, you say data is labor because it's working for you all the time. That means it's when you're sleeping, it's working for you in an algorithm somewhere, it's moving through some supply chain. The moment you classify it as labor, you have to change its input in the economy, right? And the moment it becomes labor, the impact that will have on people is that people can actually create data labor unions. Like if you think about, you can collectively bargain for what our data rights should be. And I mean, there are some examples that exist already in Holland and several different places. But the moment that starts happening and people start becoming aware, that's very, very different. So the closest analogy I can think of is in the Industrial Revolution when you had the large American steel tycoons and all of the robber barons, as they call them, right? They took all of that labor without labor laws, without labor rights, to build mass manufacturing and industries at scale. It was great for production, great for war, but now if you want to switch gears a little bit, we'll have to really think radically different. And for me, that means coming back down to what Western society a long time ago understood. Okay, sorry, long answer, but yeah.
Okay, we are going to save some more questions because the second part of the program is all about interaction. Yeah, this is not working so good.
That's all good.
Thank you,
very much. Yeah,
Arif.
appreciate it.
We are switching now to the... We are switching to the last speaker before the break. It's Ibby, Bernali, and she, well, you know her, I think. There were some fans online already. So, marketing manager and data protection officer of SingularityNet. She's going to talk about how we can make AI smarter than it is already, and what the role is of SingularityNet in that. And where's Max? Because I don't know if we can switch. Yeah, okay. So, for the second part, if you have any questions, think about it. And the second part is about interaction, so then you can shoot every question you want. And we're ready now to go, I think. Are you ready, Ibby?
Yeah, I'm connected to the technological world. The mic is working. Yay, hey, that's me. That's nice. Okay, yeah, so thank you to the organizers, of course, and welcome everyone here at SingularityNet. So let's see. Yeah, we do have the slides. Yeah, so I think that Arif's talk also sparked some questions, and so did Jan-Peter's talk. So I might kind of like rebel against my own slides here and see wherever it takes us. Maybe first, so we already asked this question in the beginning, who does not know SingularityNet? Okay. You're like with few people, a minority, yeah, nice. So SingularityNet, let me just try to explain that. According to Ben Gertz, I can explain things in easy terms. I'm not sure, but I'm gonna try. So SingularityNet is a decentralized marketplace where anyone can buy and sell AI services. Now, why the hell would you do that, right? Right now, we have a lot of centralized AI service marketplaces or API marketplaces. APIs are basically just, there's like some sort of, like I'm going to be explaining this in a non-technical term, hopefully. There is some sort of output that is exposed, like some data feed, and people can call this in to their apps, for example, such as the weather app or the navigation app to get to this place, for example. And you use that like that. And you can also have this for AI services. So what Singularity aims to do is that anyone, and you're not limited into who, can actually sell these services and buy these services without any barrier. And this is all registered in a central, decentralized smart contract. I'm gonna make it already hard right now, right? I'll get to that later. So how can decentralized AI dominate the global AI ecosystem? So as Arif explained, we're not really interested in data oligopolies. So Facebook, delete your Facebook. Google, yeah, I'll admit I still use it. Microsoft, yeah, I have a Mac, but same thing with them, right? So we're not really interested in data oligopolies because they can abuse our data, or at least that's the way it is right now. I mean, maybe they'll change one day, right? Well, not Facebook. So what we are seeing from platforms and their relationships to their users is that they first attract them because they're first very valuable, and everyone, you know, wants to interact with this platform. Like developers, they think that, you know, Google is offering them great benefits to integrate the API services into their software. It's great stuff. And then as time passes through, it starts extracting from the developers. So the developers, they're not anymore the ones that are benefiting the most of this system. It's actually the companies themselves. And the same thing happens to people that are using the platform. So like with Facebook, I mean, you probably know like whose side chick you're texting right now. And yeah, I mean, you either want them to know that or not, right? So that is something that we don't want. And we also don't want an AGI oligopoly because Skynet. We don't want to, no, don't cheer for that. we don't want to live in a world where AI would be our biggest enemy. And the point is that AI is developing and developing, is becoming more and more advanced as we go towards the future. And the fact of the matter is, if you do not design for benevolent AGI, and you do not work on that goal, I mean, we're lost for sure, right? There's this game, I think, I'm not sure if DeepMind created it, but it was with Google as well, where you had like four characters in a game, like four little balls, right? And they had to collect like apples or some like food in the game. And so they were first doing that, and they just tried to get the apples as quickly as possible. They were like AI agents in this game, right? And then what they did is they gave them lasers. So when they discovered that, hey, if I use my laser, I can actually kill a different ball, and then I have more chance to get more apples, then eventually, after a couple of iterations, they started killing each other first before getting the apples, right? So then you know, like, okay, well, in some ways, when you're designing AI algorithms, perhaps for the future, it could maybe not go that well. So we kind of like have to teach them manners to behave like the way that we would like it to be, to have some, you know, benevolence in them, for it to be good. So I won't be staying on this slide for too long, but obviously there is the unease with the corporate and the military control in AI, as we just discussed. And that is exactly the reason why you would want to create benevolent AI that is owned by the Commonwealth, everyone here in the room. Like we all own it together, so that it is in our own hands, and we can collectively decide what we want to do with this. So first, let me also just explain narrow AI versus general AI. Who here has heard of this comparison before? Okay, a couple of people did. So a lot of people also didn't. So narrow AI is an AI algorithm that is just good at one thing. So let's say that you have some sort of AI algorithm that, I mean, I don't know if this exists, probably not, but that could get you a beer. It's nice, right? But it can't get you a pizza. And that's exactly what general AI is when you have multiple AI algorithms combined together that can actually allow it to do multiple different things. So an AI, an AGI, the artificial general intelligence, could maybe get you a beer, wash your clothes, get your pizza, do all of that kind of stuff, be the self-driving car, be whatever you want it to be. It can combine all these different algorithms together, right? As if you will, different narrow AI algorithms are connected together in order to build like a greater intelligence. Spoke about that. So with SingularityNet, we're using the OpenCog framework for this. So OpenCog is basically a sort of an integrated system of different hypergraphs that have different labels and different weights. So you could, for example, let's take Sophia as an example. She is a women in STEM proponent. Why is she a women in STEM proponent? Because we basically weighted women in STEM for her more. That's why she likes it. So she is programmed to like it, right? So that is exactly like what we're doing with OpenCog. You have all these different components basically in it. Let me just see if this in here. Nope. You have all these different components in it that starts with a graph. And so let's say you have the World Cup at the top, right? And then underneath it, you have different teams, different countries, that kind of stuff. And let's say that you also have an AG like Sophia, okay? And she likes the Dutch team of this World Cup play. Then there's like an extra weight attached to this Dutch team within the context of the World Cup, so she is cheering for Holland when we're playing. So Hanson Robotics and Hanson AI is also being embedded within the SingularityNet framework. And Hanson AI approaches it as a whole organism architecture. So this means that you're not only combining the standard input of data that we already have, but you're combining like different inputs, such as audio and visual that, for example, Sophia might be experiencing, to create more of a whole experience of data that is inputted into the AI algorithms. So this creates a more natural, if you will, experience in the future with AI. I think we're with time. So in order to create like beneficial AI, we need to create a framework where powerful and scalable AI can be created by any knowledgeable developer that's willing to participate in our ecosystem. It needs to be profitable, because otherwise people won't start doing it. They might go for the easier solution. So it needs to pay off, obviously. It needs to be democratically governed and community oriented so that everyone can have a vote. So with the AGI token, one of the utilities is that you can actually vote in future as well on decisions. And it needs to retain this democratic and beneficial emphasis as AGI emerges, so that we all can participate into this ecosystem forever. I'll skip that. So when we're bringing together different aspects, so the community, the developers, and studio, and consulting, what we're doing, we're creating this singularity net ecosystem and cooperation of value that benefits different groups within this ecosystem without leaving anyone behind. So the technology and community together, they interact and collaborate on the platform development. The community and consulting together can create great ideas for research directions and discussions and debates. The studio and the consulting together can create great end user applications, right? And the developers and the studio together can create great applications for on the marketplace itself so that everybody can use them. So this is in a very brief, short introduction to what SingularityNet is to the people that didn't know what SingularityNet is, and hopefully it also clears up some questions for the people that did know what SingularityNet is. I think that we can go now to questions and interaction right now.
Yeah, we have first a short break.
Yeah.
Yeah, but maybe there's one question for now, just before the break.
Cool.
For Ibby?
Yes.
Yeah.
Nature 2.0 challenge based on that you use SingularityNet, or can you?
It's
does
not
it have to be part of it?
No, it's not. It's not based on a singularity. On that, it doesn't have to be part of Singularity and Architect. It's just one of the tools that you're getting from Nature 2.0 to eventually create whatever you want to create. So on the 21st of March, we have a couple of senior engineers flying over, and they will walk through the whole architecture SingularityNet in more detail. It's really focused on developers, that workshop, and then you'll learn how to use it for your idea potentially. Yeah.
Okay, now it's time for break and some drinks and maybe some more food. But before we go to the break, I'm curious, who of you have an idea of something to build for example, the hackathon, but maybe you didn't thought about that. Yeah.
It's a good idea to raise your hand so that
Yeah.
the people who have no ideas can meet you during the break. And
Yes.
At the end of the evening, we want to discuss and pitch. So
Yeah, yeah. After the break, we will pitch.
Raising their hands. All the beer is free, so you don't have to buy them a beer. Just talk to them.
Okay, that's quite a lot. So if you're interested, talk to them in a break, and after that, they are going to pitch their ideas, and you can see what is possible with AI, for example, but maybe also some comments from Nature 2.0. So enjoy the break.
it's in, you can put it out again. For me, it's fine, but do what you want to.
Yes, it works. Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to start second half of the program, so please take a seat.
From Singularity?
Continue eating and drinking, of course, but
For an application? Sorry? For which? A little bit complicated for us because of GDPR. In understanding GDPR plus blockchain, we really need to get that right. So we're not fully ready yet. But
you're not hiring people.
We're having more marketing, developer-oriented people.
ladies and gentlemen, I'm really happy to see that you're enjoying yourself with each other. But we have to change the world, so please take a seat and we'll start with the ideas.
To talk to you about it, yeah.
Yeah, because like I said, like almost space, and then I said again, I tried to call and nobody, so I said, I came here, okay, I need to catch the guy.
No problem, no problem. Tell me more about your background in a bit. Once I go up, we come back, we'll talk a bit more.
Yeah.
So, what do you do now?
Well,
This one in there.
Oh yeah, sure, thank you.
I just started working for a consultancy company.
Okay.
So I have to find
no problem.
but my background has always been in business development, networking, getting it right.
Cool.
Okay. And yeah, here.
Okay. Okay, we'll talk about it in a bit, okay? Very nice meeting you. And Ricardo will have a chat as well, okay? I'm just gonna prepare, yeah. Hey, oh, sorry. Testing. Ooh. Perfect. Yeah? Not too far, not too close. Yeah? Okay. The pop. Are you waiting for Ibby, is it?
Okay, we will just start. Ibby will join later.
Let
So,
Ibby sit in the center.
we just saw that there are some people with ideas already. So, can I have some more hands again. Our first hand here. Well, that's a nice start.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jurien, and I have found food that can easily be produced in abundance in Africa. It's the fastest growing and oldest grain in Africa, which is disappearing quite rapidly. But I want to reintroduce this product in Africa again. And I have found people in the poorest country of the Sahel area in Chad who are absolutely willing to start this in April this year, if we can get the funding for that. We know that before the end of this month. And my dream is to connect this to our Western world, where we need, for instance, people that support microfunding to support the experiment in Chad, to export to support the project in Chad. And I think within 5 years we can create an abundance of fonio, which is the name of the product that I'm talking about. And I'm really looking for people that can help connect this to our Western world. And I know from my visit in Chad that the IT people on the other side of the line in Chad are there as well, and they work in the same environments as you do. So it's like an elephant in a room. I mean, that people haven't seen that this was available already for so many years. And I think we are very close to realizing something like that. And I'm really looking for help. How can we store values in a new way that are created over there by food? How can we monitor and help the agricultural process, etc. So a lot of inputs are necessary, I think, to make it a success, but everything to work is there.
Let's keep it for the next one. But first, before we go to the next one, can you respond to the idea, GP, maybe from a Nature 2.0 perspective?
Well, from a Nature 2.0 perspective, what I hear you saying is I want to create a machine-to-machine ecosystem that can be used in agriculture. I want to do this to create a system that is beneficial, is usable for all people who work in agriculture, because I do not want to build it to create a company that makes money, but I want to think about all the services needed to create such an ecosystem. So from Nature 2.0 perspective, it would be the challenge to think about, okay, which part of the solution is digitally in the cloud, which part would you solve by edge computing, and where do you connect to the physical world? And I think I already talked to Jurien. He has connections to the Dutch embassy. He has connections to the ministry in Chad. So if you are thinking about a very enticing launching platform and you like agriculture, it would be a great start. What could AI do in such an automation of agriculture? What are the opportunities you see there?
Yeah. Let's see if this works. Okay. I mean, was talking to an interesting company yesterday based out of Netherlands, and what they do is supply chain optimization using AI, whether it's looking at certain predictive patterns for how food, give me a second. Need some AI here. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So I mean, supply chain optimization can be considered as well. What's also really difficult. I was last week in Davos, and I was there at a panel where they were explaining the existing systems that we have for farming and agriculture. And one of the speakers, and this video is now going viral, it's on Facebook. One of the speakers mentioned that in America, while they talk about labor productivity growth in terms of jobs created, the challenge has been the quality of the jobs. So there are some individual people in these farms, when they're part of that supply chain, they have to wear diapers because they're not allowed to go to the toilet, because they have to manufacture food within a certain KPI or criteria because of the existing system they're in. So we're really designing inhumane systems. Our supply chain, food supply chain is a really old model that could use fresh new ideas like yours. AI could be part of it, but if you really dig down and start finding how we're designing some of these systems and try and make them more human, that would also be very, very relevant.
We're going to switch because we're not going to use sketchbook anymore. I'm really good with it. So I'm just going to walk with this mic and give it to you.
Thank you for your advice. I have only a very limited time to explain, but I think the interest of the Western world in a product like Fonio from Africa is also that there the food scarcity, the food insecurity is very present. I mean, you have a meal today or not. Here, our food is slowly demolished by food industry, and we don't even see that we don't have nutritional food anymore, but we're only eating empty packaging of that we call food. And so we need new types of food. And I think Fonio from Africa is one of the few products that can bring, let's say, a kind of a super quinoa to the Western world, where we can create abundance, which was not the case with quinoa. Yeah?
And to add on that, because I know Jurien is very modest, but he's the guy who brought quinoa to your supermarket. So he already has done this once. If you're looking for a great launching platform to participate in challenges, talk to him.
Are there people here in this room and I think I want to help? Oh, that's one, two. Oh, let's talk to each other during the drinks at the end. In the first part, there were more hands from people who had an idea. Is there a lot of people. You can pitch everything. So we just start here in first row.
Hi, I'm Lawrence. I'm a director of a company called Provably Fair. For the last 4 years, we've been looking for the application of blockchain in the gaming industry because it's the most accessible industry to make a dent. We've successfully done so and unsuccessfully done so. It depends on, if you take your failures as losses and so on. It's been a tremendous journey. And we realized, wow, we're, sorry for my French, fucking irrelevant. The gaming industry doesn't help anybody, and it's not really the industry that you'd like to make an impact on. So we kind of started thinking, like, how can we actually make an impact? And this didn't start with the concept itself. We realized that we could purchase a domain called win.com. So we purchased win.com, and now we're in the conceptualization phase of understanding what it means to do something with blockchain that actually has relevance, that people care for and interact with, while at the same time generates abundance that can then be fed back to a cause that actually matters, kind of taking the power back, but in a different way than what we hear here today. So we're in that phase where we try to understand, okay, we have Apple, we have Google, they have app stores, everyone downloads games, people like to win in those games, so maybe there's relevance there. So we started thinking about the 1 billion or so every month that flows into the commissions and coffers of someone like Apple, and how to kind of interject and take out the middleman with a relevant domain like win.com to figure out if people would, use the games that we know how to build because we come from an industry where we understand what it means to build them, and making the same ecosystem where publishers would be quite comfortable on a profit sharing level to integrate their games now with us, as long as Google doesn't say, hey man, you had exclusivity with us, right? So we're kind of swimming in the waters of understanding what it means to compete with titans, which I'm sure you're familiar with, and generating relevance. So, you know, over the next 6 months or so, we're trying to lock down exactly what that ecosystem would look like, to then create a decentralized voting system, possibly, because everything is open to debate, a decentralized voting system where we can actually tell the community where the outflow is going to be placed towards on any given month, and maybe even have the most valuable contributor to that cause in any given month. So there's also prestige involved, some type of recognition of the wins that have been placed by that particular player. So, you know, I'm dabbling with a lot of ideas these days. I hope it comes out mildly coherently, and then I'd be very happy. And so it's very interesting to kind of little by little level up and understand what it means to create something that actually matters, something that could actually, you know, create an outflow that is positive, has a positive plus expected value for the community as a whole. So local, regional, global, you know, I think with a domain like that, it could be attainable. But what I notice is very much what Jan-Peter was saying, is that when a businessman interjects, somehow this whole mind frame of, okay, but how do we generate money with this, corrupts the whole idea and actually doesn't allow the engineers to create the beauty that they have inside while they're composing an idea. So we basically have a competent team to try and tackle this, but at the same time we notice like, okay, but if we do this, maybe we burn all our cash, and then what? You wind up into a survival state and don't know where you're at. So we wouldn't like those states to corrupt the idea at the same time. So it's been an interesting journey, and that's kind of my idea. Hi.
I really love your idea, and I want to build upon it, because if you look at the youth of today, they spend as much time at school as they did playing games. And what they learned in playing games, because a lot of games are about it, are to save the world, epic wins. So they already have that in your DNA. And if you now look at what Google is doing, is they if you want to log into your account, you have to show to the AI what a house looks like, or a car looks like, or a train thing looks like. That means that as soon as you come up with the narratives, how you can change the world, add value, you can translate it into games where you're not only having fun, but also learning complex ecosystem, how to work, how to react. Yeah? If you want to make the step from artificial intelligence to artificial general intelligence, there's a lot to discover. If I take a self-driving car and I put that software in a motorbike, everything will go wrong because the software is framed on being a car. This means that having a platform of people who love to play games, who add value, you can incorporate in your solutions.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if it works. Hello? Yeah. So, I mean, that's where the interconnectivity comes. We all do it on a daily basis. We scroll Facebook or Instagram in a mind-numbing way. But we would take just a little bit more enjoyment in actually communicating with our friends and doing fun stuff together, go on missions or whatever. So that's a sad thing, that's our high in the world today, and that we're not planting together or in some community doing something that actually challenges the body, right? We're actually on a device. So that's like an evil that we cannot get around very well. But while we have that evil, we can capitalize on something that actually is more interconnected, and to then generate value that can then be fed back, like an overtreffende trap. I don't know how you would translate it, but yeah, just a supplement.
I think mine. I don't know if mine's working. Is it working? Yeah. Oh, cool. Great. So, what makes you happy about your product?
I don't have a product yet.
Or about your idea?
Yeah, so I've been trying to find that because I don't think you can build anything unless it's okay with your core, right? If your body's not in agreement with what you're building. So I've been trying to figure out the equilibrium of what it means to engage myself so I can engage an audience. So this is an open question.
Okay.
I'm getting
So-
closer to it, but I'm not there.
So what I think that is maybe useful, at least that benefited us quite a bit with SingularityNet, is the process of building a community and having this discussion with them to really figure out what it is that they are also missing and what would make them happy about your idea and future product. Because when you don't have that idea yet and you don't know what that missing piece is that all these tech titans are not offering right now, then it's also hard to build that and compete with them. The advantage of startups, and that's of course why all these big tech titans, they are buying startups, is that startups are moving faster, right? You don't have to go through 10 layers of management before you even get a certain decision, through. You have less layers, and it's a lot more fast and a lot more dynamic. So you have more room to experiment as well right now. So whilst you don't have a product yet, you have like the biggest playground for experimentation that you can have at any point in time when you're building your business. So I would use that to really inform your future strategy and to find out what makes someone happy about the idea, and then work towards that goal.
Yeah, so one hesitation that comes up, I really value feedback. Open source is indeed the way to establish the right way forward. Right now you would want to have your ducks in a row to make sure that once the idea comes out through open source, when people say, this is truly what we would love, that there's no titan looking over your shoulders and saying, wow, we can actually build that in just a couple of weeks, and there they go, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the thing why I first wanted to have a product core, to then throw it open source or share it with the community and understand what makes you tick, what could we change, what makes it more engaging. So I wonder what you think about that.
Maybe just adding in from my perspective, we're all wired to play games, and one thing that's really interesting is actually you alluded to the answer that you were trying to seek, which was we're really disconnected when we use these devices, and that human-to-human connection is lost. If you can create games that genuinely connect human beings to other humans in a way that allows them to discover each other again, and I'm not talking about Tinder or different ways of just re-emphasizing the existing paradigm. I'm talking about genuinely understanding. That's actually a design problem, right? It's a design problem that can be solved, can be thought of. The way that we're structuring it currently is, and if you look at the early days of Zynga and Zynga's growth, primarily built on the Facebook platform, and if you look at the amount of, if you had a map of the human chemical dopamine superimposed on Earth and all the people who were using Zynga, you'd see the way that they designed their system was just purely addictive reflex, find the next person to invite, grow your reward system. So that's the moment you start putting in scale and all of those as criteria, and you want to maximize shareholder value. But that's not sustainable. You can look at the company now and see that it's become a shell of what it used to be. You can sustain it for a while. The interesting question is where blockchain comes in and where token economics and really thinking about community is, it goes back to something that I read in the book, I think Sapiens, by Yuval Noah Harari, right? Money is a story we all believe in. And that story is right now controlled by, let's say, governments or partners who are printing that money, right? They have institutions behind them, the military, the treasury, the Fed. For the first time in society, that conversation on who can print money and who believes in the money you printed, that's changing. That's going to provide game designers like yourself or philosophers or thinkers a very radical paradigm, because now you can create, instead of companies, you can create economies. And with that, you can create code. So Ibby, does a fantastic job for us in looking at the community, understanding their sentiment, listening to them. But we also reward the right behaviors whenever we spot something like that. So a lot of our community is volunteer run, and some of our volunteers do an amazing job. but they also do it because they believe in the economy and the currency that we are creating, currency of trust, but also the way that the token is circulating. So this conversation around money is happening today. All of you have amazing ideas. Think about if you could program money and if you could own that concept, how would you circulate it within the companies or the foundations that you want to build?
Yeah, so one question there is that Singularity was founded through an ICO. I mean, in terms of, money,
sure.
When Influx came, I was one of the contributors as well. Today, ICOs are not really the hot stuff anymore, so people aren't really looking to invest, and there's not in the same utility a catalyst as there was with Singularity. So what do you, because you're talking about the inception of an economy, as a sole instance almost, as if you printed out nothing, like an ICO, what would be an alternative here that apply? Because I can make the most beautiful story today and people would be like, man, it's a grade 7+ ICO, let's not invest in that one, right?
No, I get your point. It's about credibility and fundraising, and that's a much longer conversation because it's about, the ICO instrument was in many ways a great instrument for people who wanted to believe and participate in the utility of what was being built. That instrument, I know the general sentiment right now is that it was a little bit scammy and shady, and there were a lot of scams, and so this destroyed. You see, so when humans create a new technology, it's an explosion, right? It's a Cambrian explosion where you have so much more projects coming together. With that open space, that green field, there are going to be experiments that fail, and sometimes people judge that entire space because of the failures. And because of the scammers, because of the artists that exist. I'd still say that creating and using that leverage, that technology that has happened, whether it's an ICO or an STO or other different instruments that are coming up, it's a conversation that's going to evolve because this problem around who can print money, how you can control money supply, that's changed. You don't have to be a government anymore, right? So that's something that you want to take into your company.
On that, it's also looking at the world and who shares the same story. So if you look at critical infrastructure, all critical infrastructure is not about money. So I work for a grid company. We invest billions every year in energy system. And we invest those billions and we depreciate it over 40 years. Basically saying that the world will only change, incremental at most, because else we would be lying in our books. But who here believes that the world for the 40 coming years will only change incremental? That means that we, as a critical infrastructure party, and all the others, have a challenge. Because in the current system, it's normal to invest. But the promise of investment, we cannot do. If you come to our deep dive at February 5th, we share the session with APG, who is a pension fund, who in the world of today can say, we have even 1,000 times more investment power than the grid company. And we tell you that because we have a calculated interest, as soon as you turn in 67, we will pay for the rest of your life. But all the medical people who are doing research and may find some breakthroughs will enable the people to get older and older and older. And as soon as you become 30 years older, there is not enough money for the pension funds to pay, and there's no ways to get it. So it's normal in the world of today, and we accept it. But if you look at it like an engineer would do it, it'd say, yeah, but this of course cannot be. And that means that there are partners to be found on places where you do not seek them. Another incredible way to create funding and movement is to ask what does the people motivate intrinsically. So if you look at the food industry where we started our journey, then food is a thing which we produce around money. And you have the cheap food that's not so healthy. And then the people say, well, for example, the supermarkets, what if you make it next year 25% cheaper, because else I have no space on the shelf for you. So the people are forced to make it cheaper. The only thing they can do is lower the quality. And we are the consumers, we take this food, this unhealthy food, and put it into our body. So if you start to discuss with people about food, we really do not like this notion of unhealthy food. So it's not the investors, but it are the millions of people who actually eat the food and put it into their body, make it part of their ecosystem, who would be willing to help in ideas, in crowdfunding, maybe a little bit. But if you don't want to build a company, but a commons all over the world, that is an incredible community. And because you're not aiming at making money, the big entities will start at, well, this is not relevant, but they're not even making money. No, but you're building an ecosystem that makes all the people of the world healthy. Imagine the amount of friends, the amount of help, the assistance of governments and research institutes you will get for that.
Thank you.
There's a lady there. Or
Yes. Okay. Thank you for having me, or give me the time. I'm René Wanstronk. I'm an architect from Amsterdam. So it's a classic architecture, buildings, not AI or computers. So I developed a so-called solar energy zero-emission building concept, including seasonal storage, cooperated with many companies like Enexis and so on. So they are in fact under mandate, so they're not allowed to produce energy, so finally are not allowed to do my concept. So the technology readiness level is quite high. I'm copying the Earth. So the Earth is heated on daytime. It's cooling itself by infrared radiation. And the two effects give our today Earth temperature. I'm using that to heat the southern facade and to cool the northern facade, store it in the building so that it are energy producing buildings. Technology readiness level is quite high because it's a big trial and error process, co-financed by many partners like the Dutch government, the European Commission, and so on. So it's now a key innovation in the Smart Cities and Communities platform, being a so-called energy storage system without energy losses and the so-called lowest exergy losses. And that means that, and that's actually what I want to share, which is possibly close to Nature 2.0, that if you look to energy, it is all about quality. So we use natural gas to heat something from 0 outside to 20 inside, having a potential temperature of 2,500 degrees. So in fact, we lose every day 95% of the quality of natural gas. I deal with the sun, so if you go to the beach, you want 1 kilowatt-hour body heat, you just lay down. If you want the same 1 kilowatt-hour in electricity, the sun say, I don't deliver, and you have to pay. So in fact, the sun is not dealing on energy. The volume you require or ask is dealing on quality. So the higher the quality you ask, the more you pay. So now my question. I make buildings with these two facades and I store energy in water columns in the core. That costs you per house around 20,000 euro. Which means it is 3 euro per kilowatt hour, and due to this low exergy characteristic, it is 100-fold cheaper than batteries, which is 300 euro per kilowatt hour. Even though it is 20,000 euros, so what I'm thinking about is to co-finance that with carbon credits. Until now, carbon credits, going back to Kyoto Protocol, it's only, let's say, accessible for larger industries. That's how it's organized. But if you look to the strategy of the emission trade system of Europe, is going down to smaller companies, big buildings and small buildings. So my point here is, and then I go to the AI or perhaps the blockchain area, how to make a blockchain carbon credit wallet, so in Dutch portemonnee, for individuals house by house. So what I actually see to co-finance this 20,000 euros, you could earn money, this is all still about money in our today economy, you could earn money with the house by being zero emission. But how to make the carbon credits accessible for the house? So the house is the owner of the wallet, so that we go to the world of things, where the house is owning the wallet, co-funding its own energy storage. So a blockchain carbon credit wallet for individuals house by house. And I'm now, because I'm quite new in this area, I'm looking for people who like to execute it and to help to build that wallet. So that's my question to both of three of you. I will be there on 5th of February. Aber from Odyssey, which is the hackathon, linked me to your community. And yeah, so that's it.
Awesome idea.
Yeah, I really like it. No, I'm pretty sure that there are actually a couple of people in our community that are very into energy saving solutions as well. As for how you would do that on a high level overview, you'd probably go the same route that we went with Ethereum, and basically just create like an Ethereum address for these houses that are stored on servers that are in these houses. And then they all have their own, address to start with. But what you would probably also want is to have some sort of a second layer system on top of this that can monitor and know how a region of houses like this is actually doing and what they're actually earning maybe together. And maybe if they have like too much energy that they can't, lose, they can basically just sell this back into the net to maybe other people that don't have that environment friendly houses, and they could use that energy and then trade basically with their locals amongst each other perhaps. So you can have the wallets, and that's then the first step of that, and then you have the second layer where you can monitor all of this that's going on, and you can, based on that, have these rewards and systems created within a local community or a larger whole to manage that perhaps. And I think that system could be also AI driven, of course, to maybe predict where more energy needs are occurring and maybe where energy shortages are also happening, and how that evolves into the future.
I think just very quickly to add, there are several trends that people are observing in the blockchain space. Number one, tokenizing of real world assets, or generally tokenizing almost everything, right? Because of fractional ownership, you can then split that out and trade it between one party and another. So the token would allow you to do that. But more than that, I think what's really interesting about your idea is you're tapping on waste. I mean, energy that is being wasted and not necessarily used. At a broader, higher level, it is a little bit crazy to think that the Earth globally, if you wanted to solve, going to Jan-Peter's point about ecosystems, right? Why doesn't Earth have her own currency that actually benefits the ecosystem? It doesn't exist. We all have individual currencies designed to purchase and function in society, but there's a new stakeholder right now that we have begun to unravel and understand, and that's the Earth, the climate. And as that stakeholder is part of the conversations and becoming more important today, how can you use blockchain technology to facilitate that conversation and have that positive behavior be impacted? So I think you need an Earth coin, or a carbon coin, or whatever you want to call it, right? But the idea would be to push the boundaries and educate citizens on how they can effectively and creatively use it. So that's something that's very much needed, and I think it's great that you're getting these sort of ideas here.
I like your idea a lot, but of course, in Nature 2.0 we want to make everything crazier. The first concept I would invite you to look at is terrazero.org. It's a self-owned forest where the forest, with help of, in this case, a few artists, created a solution where there's a picture of a satellite every half year that determines which trees to sell. A lumberjack goes to an auction, pays for the tree, gets the location, gets the wood, and the thing has an incoming money stream. Your narrative was all about waste, but if you look at the building as like the buildings we are in today, everything I change in this building becomes waste. Where, as I have played with Lego in my youth, I have this picture of rebuilding houses using modularity. So can you make the idea more modular? And maybe we have some people from Crya here who won the last hackathon, and they come up with a concept of emergent cities. Cities that start to exist and disappear again. And they said, this is not a big step because we already have them today. We call them festivals or refugee camps. Or we look what the military does. On an infrastructure of nothing, you can build a city where people can live for 5 days 10,000 people, and then it moves on again. Imagine that you have self-owning emergent houses who solve the energy problem, like you said, and they are built of the same blocks, and they could buy more houses. Then investing, living in those houses helps the people to all get modular energy neutral houses. So on February 5th, these would be the concepts we are working on. Okay, how can we build them? How would this design be radically different from the cost-effective way we build houses today? Because you will find out that those systems are more about resilience. And finding out about resilience is then again something where the AI becomes very important. But I love the fact that you will be there on February 5th.
I will be there, and I try to be everywhere now. Going back to the network thing, because it's low exergy, it costs you electricity to transport heat. So normally electricity, that's a network thing. You can buy and sell electricity, so that's very close to what you, I think, addressed. The point with heat is that it is that low exergy, so that the value is that low that it costs you too much electricity to transport it. So point one is you should avoid transport of heat. So that's why we solve it with one single house, which is actually, let's say, for the implementation an advantage, because you can go from individual to individual. I don't need to have 1,000 friends to, let's say, establish an underground storage, which needs 1,000 houses, for example. So it's not a network-alike approach, it's more a single house approach, where you try to find co-financings for the storage, which you cannot buy or sell. It's simply about that you avoid emission. So the big value here is that it is zero emission. So it's not energy neutral, not emission neutral, it's simply zero emission. About waste, one of the characteristics is that in this energy storage we use the waste, there is waste energy. So to give you a feeling about the numbers, we store only 8 gigajoule per year, and we lose 11. So we lose more than 50% out of this column, because that's just physics. And we cannot change that. It's insulation, a half meter, and that's it. We use that as building heating. So in fact, the energy losses of the storage, seasonal storage, are used as building heating. So that's our, let's say, waste approach. And going to the trees, that's actually what Abe mentioned. That's why I'm here. So I should study that, how that works. And if you ask me what I dream, so we express it now in concrete and steel. It's very well established with suppliers. But finally, I'm dreaming about textile structures filled with water. So then you bring back, let's say, the building weight, 99%. So that's a completely different story of building sector. The sector is now locked in building weight. So transport costs for building 30%. So it's a local economy with a lot of side events why it's locked in, more or less. So yes, I should like to, in case we are open to dream there about, let's say, and then the nice point is the energy system is the building structure itself. So as soon as that's enough to co-finance the energy, the building is for free, because the construction, in fact, is a storage system. So that's a completely different, okay, but that's a dream until now. Huh?
But that is exactly where you want to go to dream. Then talk with the people who work a lot with technology, and then discover that it's not the technical solution that holds us back, but the lock-in into our current system. So we don't want to change a thing in the current ecosystems. We want to think about ecosystems that also function, but are radically different than the world of today. And this is where the parties of the critical infrastructure of as ourselves are very interested in, because these are changes that will not happen next year, but probably or possibly within 40 years. And then it's good to dream.
Okay, I hope that I can keep my promise that I said everybody can pitch, but how many people do we still have that want to pitch? 2, 3. Okay, that's doable, right? So how's the energy? Still up for some more pitches? Or for drinks? Yeah? Okay, well. Well, okay. Maybe we can do it a little bit. What? Oh, If you want to stand up and sit down, for the energy you mean? Ah, okay, okay. Please. Feel free to stand. Move a little, jump a little.
I'm like
And then we can do a little 15 minutes. Okay. Yeah, I think that was okay. You can sit down again. Then we continue.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm Janine. Okay, I wait for 1 second. Okay, hello, I'm Janine Herkrad. I'm a biologist. I'm also a master student of bio-inspired innovation, and I'm co-founder of Habari, a young startup based in Utrecht in the Netherlands. And me and my team, we designed a solution against climate change. It's for crop protection, and currently we are the finalists. We are one of the 6 finalists of the Global Biomimicry Design Challenge, in total 6 teams. So we're the only European team with our design solution. Well, the topic was climate change, and we are, well, bio-inspired innovation students, meaning, have anyone heard about biomimicry? Yeah, okay, so it's biomimicry. And we mimicked specific parts of plants to design our device, which should operate fully automated just by recognizing local climate temperature changes. Because as you know, climate change is affecting all of us, and not all of us, also all of our food, and also all the farmers. You know probably about droughts, about hail, storms, but also frost is pretty much a problem. And we looked in Kenya specifically for tea plantations. Well, you might know, like, oh, okay, Kenya, Africa, frost, But yes, it's a huge problem, and people there suffer a lot from frost, especially from night frost, and they have crop losses from over 40%, sometimes overnight, everything is destroyed. Meaning, tea plants can be very, very old, and overnight they can lose all they have. This is not only a problem in Kenya, this is actually a global problem, and this is affecting every crop, every plantation worldwide. We had some troubles in the beginning to get some contacts in Kenya, because we're in the Netherlands, and it's a bit tricky. So we focused more in Europe on vineyards, and we designed our current design against frost. It's a cover mechanism. It looks fancy so far. The device is built now, will be built in February 1st, our prototype. Yeah, and biomimicry is more than just a product. There is a whole ethic behind it. You have to be sustainable. You have to be locally attuned. You have to use waste streams. Waste equals food. You have to use life-friendly chemistry. And, well, we are pretty ambitious, and we actually really want to change something. We want to create something for the commons. We want to create something open source, something where everyone has access to. Because if you look at a tea plantation in Kenya, it can be very steep like that. It can be very flat. And as you can imagine, you cannot only produce one product which fits all. Meaning, if you want to be the best solution, you have to be really client-oriented. Everyone should have a comment on his or her design. If you want to be locally attuned, you have to use the local materials which are available, or the local waste streams. We want to connect all that to create something really sustainable and something good. We have already a couple of blockchain and AI ideas, but I am and my team are super open for new input, because, we don't want to have this tunnel view. So if you have any idea how to make it better, how to make our world better, our product better, so that it's not only another product on a market which we already have enough from, right? Hit me up.
Do you already want to respond, or do you maybe want to add something on your ideas of AI that you're already working on or have? Okay.
Well, what I really love about this idea is that you're talking about concepts that could work all over the world. And in the different forms, we are talking about a digital layer that is already there. So the blockchain researchers, the programmers, the AI researchers, what would we need in the air? What would we need locally so that those machines can be built, can operate? Do we create games around the operation of those games so that they can learn, so that the AI can learn? So how can we make a smart digital infrastructure that all this knowledge is accessible just by an API? How do we create such a layer? I think it's magnificently that there is already a team working on those concepts, how it could work physically. And that, for example, if you take it to the hackathon, creating this digital commons all over the world, that this can start connecting with your machines. Thinking of the first layer, thinking of the second layer. I know that Singularity Net, a bit the same but also different, is working on pictures of plants to see if they have a sickness or not, so that they can learn, is this plant ill or not, and how do we treat it? In one of our former meetups, you can find the movie and the open source code also. On Nature 2.000, we had little droids driving around, identifying, is this a plant or not? Can we help it or not? So we can create digital ecosystems that already, from the digital twin part, exist everywhere. And this could be a really cool project.
I completely agree. I don't have that much to add, but I am curious to hear about what you think blockchain and AI can do for your project and how you are currently seeing the opportunities, and maybe brainstorm a little bit on that later as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I think in the interest of time as well, just if we can collaborate with Singularity Net, more than happy to explore this. This is an area where we've done some work in the past, as Jan-Peter has mentioned.
The interesting DIA
project.
Project. Cool. This is a Decentralized AI Alliance. So it's co-founded by Singularity Net and AI Decentralized from Toda Network. And we're basically welcoming organizations, whether you are in blockchain or AI or both or not at all. If you are interested in how it could be used for your organization and be interested in joining that ecosystem, you're more than welcome to always contact us. You can email me at ibby@singularitynet.io for more information. And yeah.
Cool.
Nice talk for during the drinks maybe later. Then we can now go to the. Yeah, we have two more. So I start with you, and then you are the last one. Okay.
Okay, thank you. My name is Thomas Schijf. I'm a software developer in AI. I participated in the blockchain hackathon and we managed to become third last year. I have an idea that is, I have to admit, and thank you for bringing it up already, inspired by the forest. The idea is to solve the deforestation problem. And how can we solve this? There are a lot of farmers in the world that are owning the land, and companies are buying up this land and plant down the whole forest. What if we can make a system where a satellite comes over every year, for example, and sees if there is still forest or not? Then only some farmer has to claim that it's his property. So you can, for example, think of an app where you say, okay, I have this code. Then the system says, okay, you have to put this code on your field, and then the satellite will make a picture, and on this way you claim the area. And if you are continuously maintaining the forest on your area, you can also get like tokens of to this area, so you can get more money from charity, for example. Is this an idea?
I would really invite you to look at what's happening currently at Ecuador, because there they changed the law, and now nature has become a legal person in Ecuador. And the first thing they did is they gathered hours of legal people pro bono. So in Ecuador, there are now the first legal fights where nature actually wins. And what you're telling about is a system where nature can buy itself back again. So free itself and start working beneficial to us all. And if you go to our website, we have Design Studio Wolfpack and General Forester. They are thinking about how can nature become self-owned within cities, not only being aesthetical, but adding value. So you have different elements there that if you mingle them together this is already a great idea, but even make it more crazy.
I think just from my perspective, I would add that the design layer of this problem, making people care about nature, is going to be the most critical challenge that you face. Like Jan-Peter has said, you can have legal institutions that try and solve that problem for you by having nature be part of the conversation. But if you can maybe gamify it and add elements of the token layer on top, you'd make people care deeply about what's important 50 years down. And actually that's a huge human problem to solve, because we are so short-term oriented on a day-to-day basis that it's very difficult. There was an advertisement a long time ago. I saw it not because I read highbrow magazines, but there was an advertisement. It was not supposed to be an advertisement. The original statement was from Native American tradition, which was, we are going to leave our earth. We don't own the earth. We only borrow it for the future generation. That's the actual statement from Native American tradition. The advertisement that I saw was from Patek Philippe, the watch, that said you don't own a Patek Philippe, you pass it down to the future generation, right? So the thing is that there are these ideas that are at the core of human identity, long-term thinking, passing it down, generational awareness that actually make us more humans. Those ideas tend to take a back seat because there are other existing ecosystems that are far stronger right now. When you start adding the token layer and gamification design layers, you actually can shift the conversation in the right direction for the benefit. Yeah. So yeah, get a Patek Philippe, right? So.
No, that's great. I can already see like the first, or is it on? Yeah, already can see like the first game that's being passed on from grandparents to children, and then the grandparents' score still counts, right? Yeah, no. Who knows?
Okay, last one.
Hi, I'm Brandon. I work at the cybersecurity company, a small startup in Utrecht. And my idea was really simple. In order for all these ideas to work, we need the guarantee that you can take risks, and for that you need cybersecurity. So the idea is free and automated security tests for projects in the space. Yeah, that's it.
It would be so cool to think of such a concept and then offer it, and all the entities who work on commons beneficial for us all. Because that means that as soon as you start working, not to make money, but beneficial for us all, you have that additional help that can really inspire it. We did it once with Linux, as all the rest of the infrastructure wasn't ready. But we are now very soon coming at a point where entities building on top of each other can do amazing things far beyond what any company can do. So thank you for your great idea.
It's definitely very necessary. for projects to succeed, to have that play field of where they can experiment and do whatever they want, and then still have the cybersecurity in there as well. I'd say maybe for the idea also think about how doing automated cybersecurity penetration tests could also, I mean, in certain setups, form a risk to easily exploit those that actually fail that test. Perhaps, I don't know if you want to do it open source, but it's, yeah, so then you can immediately maybe do this on thousands of companies at the same time and find which ones are weak, and it's an open source tool which might expose them again. So I think when you're doing this, also think about that problem, and maybe you already have. Yeah, and then I think it's a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the clarity in your thinking and speech. Very short, succinct, and powerful. That means you've thought about it a lot. I think freedom, the freedom that we're all aiming for, the freedom that we're all trying to acquire, requires a baseline of security. And if we really started to understand the conversations around individual security, individual data, how those security dynamics have changed our society. So there was a quote, I think it was from Douglas Rushkoff, who said, Facebook's biggest invasion isn't your privacy, it's actually your personality. So while it seems like the moment you start giving up some data security, some parts of your data to people, and you're not certain about some things, it actually starts to shape your identity and the meaning around it. So starting off with security is going to be very relevant. I just think that the simplicity of the idea means that there might be a lot of competitors out there and challenges, but I think if you're participating in the right ecosystem, you'll find the right support here as well. Awesome.
And one little add I want to make. If you now look at how we design systems for mass production. So everything has to be the same. And that means that you also create security risks, because if you breach one, you breach all. The places where we are now making significant steps with AI is language. That means something which as diverse of language, which can be done also in different kind of languages, the AI can already handle. So the AI can translate Dutch into English, into German, into Chinese. And that means that all the systems, all the ecosystems we are building could use different languages, so that what is a breach on one place maybe is not a breach on other things. So not only start using security as the last thing to fix, but also taking it at the starting point of radical redesign, using the technologies that are already very far today.
Okay, that was it. I think everybody was able to pitch their idea, and that was great. But I think we're now finished and ready for drinks. First of all, do you want to add something more? I don't think so. Yeah, of course, of course. So if you are interested to elaborate on everything we talked on today, or you're searching for teammates, or you want to start your own idea but have some questions, please come to our deep dive at 5th. Well, you learn everything about Nature 2.0 and meet awesome people. Ibby will be there, and a lot of people from the Odyssey organization and other tracks will be there, and like I said, team members. Also more people with crazy ideas. So if tonight there was not your idea amongst them, you can maybe find another team or another challenge to join. That was that. And for now, I really want to thank you for being here, for your awesome ideas. For me, it was really hopeful. Yeah, I think we can change the world with more people like you and your ideas. So that's cool. And of course, I want to thank Ibby and Arif to just be here and come here all the way. So I think that was it. Before you go and I forget, I have some presents. So, of course, this is only a start of our collaboration, but we are already very happy that you were here tonight. And please give them an applause for being here. Thank you. And then now it's time for drinks. So please go to the bar. Oh, and one thing, when you come to the 5th, we make sure that the sound is better. So don't be scared to come.